everybody, welcome back. We are on chapter 6 called The Law of Increase. And remember, we're working out of the book, Working with the Law by Raymond Holliwell. This is an excellent book. I've read this book so much. I think I've had this book for at least, 2024, probably like 10 years, something like that, 12 years. And I've read this book so much, it's really falling apart. But anyway, let's get rocking and rolling. Chapter 6, Law of Increase. This is really the law of life here. So, Holliwell starts off with his famous quote again, and there's a different quote that he kind of tears apart a little bit. Sometimes he tears apart the quote, and that's the main quote throughout the chapter that he's tearing apart. Sometimes the quote is just an overall what the chapter means, but he actually goes into a different direction. But let's get rocking. Let everything that has breath praise the Lord. Praise ye the Lord. Psalm 150. Now remember, before we get started here, Lord God, the word God actually means law in Hebrew. When they were used the word God in the Bible, it actually means law. Now Joseph Murphy, in Power of the Subconscious Mind, in that book, he uses the Lord God law as our subconscious mind. But Raymond Holliwell doesn't really do that here in this book. So let's get rocking. Without exception, I believe everyone has read or heard the delightful story of Aladdin and his magic lamp. How a poor boy has stumbled upon the little genie who led him to find a dusty old lamp. It was a magic lamp, and when he rubbed it briskly, a little man appeared out of a cloud before him and asked to fill his wishes. We, as children, have always dreamed of fairies and of beautiful things in life that we wished we might have. Yet many of our dreams remained as such because we could do nothing about them. So this little story here, this is kind of where the law of increase he kind of builds off of, is the story as when we were little kids. Now I don't know now, I know back in my day, back in my sister's day, that Aladdin was really popular, and even the concept of the story, the fairy tale of the genie and your 3 wishes, and you could wish anything, have anything in your life, and a genie would make it happen. So he builds off the law of increase on this story. Because what if, this is a question I want to have to you and even to myself. What if we could really have anything that we want? Okay, what if we just put a mind to it, we really have that power? Okay, if we really believe that abundance is inside us, heaven is within us, abundance is our birthright. If we really truly believe this to our core, and we just don't conceptually believe it, what if we could really have anything we want? We could, whatever we put a mind to, we know without a shadow of a doubt is going to come to us. Just like Aladdin and his lamp, just like if we had our own personal genie, and we had 3 wishes, 5 wishes, or even if we had unlimited wishes, no matter what we wished for, we would get. What if that was really true? So this is how Holliwell breaks apart this chapter. So let's start diving into it. In truth, we may not believe in fairies, but we know there is a principle equivalent to the magic lamp. No, it is not something material that we can carry about and rub at will to find a little genie to do our bidding. It is an understanding which enables us to use the law more clearly. Here he's talking about the laws of the universe. And in using it, we stimulate our good and bring about much for our pleasure and happiness that seems like magic or miracles. This understanding is the act of praising God, the law for which we desire, and invariably the fulfillment of that desire is speeded up in the most magic proportion. And I'm going to see what. Okay, I do have it on green. I'm going to highlight this right here, even though I have a lot of green. So I'm going to read this right here. This is where Holliwell is going to take off in this chapter. And this big paragraph down below is really the meat and potatoes here. This understanding is the act of praising God. Praising God, praising the Lord, praising the law, praising the laws of the universe. Being thankful, having gratitude. This is what that means. For that which we desire, and invariably the fulfillment of that desire is speeded up in almost magic proportion. This method, bring us down a little bit, make sure you can read it. This method is, of course, not new. This isn't a new method. This has been around even in 1967 when he wrote this book. This has been around. Every old school prosperity teacher taught this, even in the very, very early 1900s and even in the 1800s, as far back as we can get, books and scripture and stuff like that. It has been used throughout the Bible from beginning to the end. Praise has ever been a common method used to employ the attention, favor, and blessing of God. So you're in this chapter, he really talks about praising, and this really is in Holliwell's viewpoint is the law of increase. Always praising, always giving thanks, always having gratitude, no matter what it is that you're doing. In early history, we learned that the people would bring their sacrifices and place them on the altar to gain favor of Jehovah. Following this act, they would render their praise in song and ceremony, believing that by doing, they would be favored, their prayers would be granted. So he's going back to, he's really going back to old school, in biblical times, not New Testament, but in the Old Testament times. And when they had ceremonies and, sacrifice sheep and stuff like that, because they thought, no matter what their religion was, they thought that they would have favor by God. Read the Song of Moses and note its structure. Read of the fall of Jericho and note the process used by the people who marched around the city walls until they crumbled and fell, and who became conquerors. Read the last Psalm of David, and in doing so, remember that it has been used by the Hebrews for ages, and it was proven most effective throughout the centuries. The singing of songs or the blowing of trumpets does not bring the results you pray for, nor do you suddenly gain favor with God because of it. So it's not, basically what he's saying, it's not the act that you're doing. It's not, it's not marching around Jericho. It's not the act. It's not blowing trumpets, singing songs. It's not the act that shows favor with God, that shows favor with the laws of the universe. This is what he's saying. It's not the act. Down here in yellow, the effect of your efforts does not influence God in any sense. Listen to this. The effect of your efforts does not influence God in any sense. It does not influence you. Oh, okay, now I read that wrong. I do apologize. The effect of your efforts does not influence God in any sense, but it does influence you. So it doesn't influence God, but it influences you. How does this happen? It enables you to be lifted up and unconsciously touch the law and gain its blessing. What has been an unconscious act or an accidental method can become a known fact and a regular means of stimulating the good. If one learns the simple method of praise, that alone will stimulate and increase his good. Jesus once said, if one has faith as a grain of a mustard seed, he can move mountains. Now I'm going to read that verse one more time. I'm down here in purple. If one has faith. Now the word faith here, this is what I love to do with scripture. What's another word for faith? Faith means belief. Okay, when you see all these verses with faith, sometimes when I read verses with faith, it didn't really move me very much. But when I started to take out the word faith, and faith means belief, if you really have faith in something, you really believe it's going to happen. That's what faith means. If you really have faith in something, you really demand it to happen. You really believe to your core it's going to happen. You really expect it's going to happen. So if you really expect something to happen, you believe it's going to happen. So another word for faith is belief. So if Jesus said, if one has belief as a grain of a mustard seed, so a grain of a mustard seed is super tiny. He can move mountains with just tiny, tiny little belief. Just an ounce of little belief, you can move a whole mountain. If one can realize the power of praise, he can do the same. Praise is a complementary to faith. Praise is a complementary to belief. Whereas faith is wisdom and understanding. Whereas belief is wisdom and understanding. Praise is the application of that understanding. Faith, belief. Now I'm interchanging the words, so the words aren't in here, but faith, belief is the boiler that holds a substance of power, whereas praise is a fuel that generates that power into active force. If you must constantly watch a boiler and care especially for the fuel that charges it, in order to get the most out of it, then the fuel is a very important part of the machinery. In like manner, faith, belief without praise is but a cold boiler. Listen to this. In like manner, of his example, faith or belief without praise, what he means by praise without thankfulness, without gratitude. So faith without praise, faith without gratitude, faith without being thankful is but a cold boiler, an inert mass of machinery. It may be nice to look at or to talk about, but of no value more than that until it is put in motion and produces praise. Okay, now praise, I'm interchanging these words again. Praise, being thankful, having gratitude is a stimulant of the mind. It quickens prayer. It magnetizes all the good around you. It transforms that good into usable, visible substance. So I'm right here at the very end. Okay, I'll bring this up so we can kind of see it. So praise is a stimulant of the mind. Being grateful, having gratitude. This is why when you study the law of attraction, law of assumption, okay, manifesting in general, they always talk about gratitude. At some point, we learn to be thankful. The power of being thankful, the power of having gratitude. Okay, but lots of times we conceptually understand it. Okay, we can talk about it, we can understand it, we can discuss it with other people, but we're really not doing it. And to our core, we really don't understand it. We really don't understand why gratitude is so important. Okay, so here Holliwell is really talking about praise, being thankful, and gratitude. Why is it so important? Why is it such an important part of the law of the universe? Praise is a stimulant of the mind. Gratitude is a stimulant of the mind. It quickens prayer. What does it mean when it quickens prayer? Okay, you're praying about your dream car, your dream house. You're praying about retiring your family, okay? You dream about retiring your parents. You dream about having a higher salary, your career. Whatever it is, okay? Prayer quickens, okay? Praise, having gratitude, having thankfulness quickens your prayer, quickens your intention, quickens what you want. It magnetizes all the good around you. It transforms that good into usable, visible substance. In purple here, here's a little example he gives. A woman was crying bitterly and praying tearfully. And this is a great example. I would really want you to listen to this. A woman was crying bitterly and praying tearfully to God for her release. The master, hearing her, silenced her and asked, "Is your God a God of tears, of grief, and anguish and pain?" No. God is a giver of joy and peace and happiness and love. You want peace and joy, yet you pray to your Father with tears. If you want black, do you ask for white? If you ask for a fish, do you expect a serpent? If you ask for bread, do you expect a stone? You can only get what you expect. For the unchanging law of the universe is ever working to supply you. Prayer should not be one of supplication, pleading, begging, entreating a sad state. It should be one of claiming, declaring, decreeing, praising, and joyful thanksgiving. Okay, this is so powerful because when I read this, and Holliwell will expand on this, because you have to understand, most of us, it doesn't matter what our beliefs are, okay? It doesn't matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter if right now you're kind of in the middle, you don't know if you believe in God or not. But we all at some time prayed for something in our life, okay? But do you notice and be aware of when you actually go into prayer. Most of us go into prayer as a last resort for asking for something. Maybe our back is pushed up against a wall. Maybe our life is crumbling all around us. We don't know what to do. And in that emotional state, we go to prayer. But when we go to prayer, we're going to prayer like Holliwell is saying. We're going to prayer being bitter. We're going to prayer crying. We're going to prayer in a sad state. We're going to prayer doubting and fearing and worry. That's how we're going to prayer. But what we have to understand is the laws of the universe, God, okay, our subconscious mind is only bringing us what we bring emotion to. Okay, now we've learned in the other chapters here is that the law doesn't discriminate. Okay, the subconscious mind doesn't discriminate. It just gives you what you're emotional to. So this is why he says, Is your God a God of tears, of grief, and anguish and pain? Oh no, God is a giver of joy and peace and happiness and love. Okay, so when you go to prayer, this is what he says right here. Prayer should not be one of supplication, pleading, begging, entreating, or at a sad state. It should be one of claiming, declaring, decreeing, praising, giving gratitude, being thankful, and a joyful thanksgiving. That's how we should go to prayer. Then you also would notice, maybe in your own life, when prayers were answered, be aware and think back at what emotional state were you in? And I bet you that you were in at the very end of this chapter, or not very end of this paragraph, you were in a state of claiming, declaring, decreeing, praising, being thankful, having gratitude, being joyful. You were in that state and you received exactly what you were asking for. Praise is an avenue of prayer through which the Spirit law expresses itself. Praise is a Broadway highway, while all other forms are only feeding arteries. Through this inherent law, when man praises, when man has gratitude, when man has thankfulness, he opens himself upward to God. He lifts his consciousness to a higher realm and becomes greater channel to receive the good that is ever waiting to come to him. Praise opens a little door in his mind that enables him to draw closer to God and to be attuned to the divine forces within and about him. Praise, gratitude, thankfulness is the shortest route to complete any demonstration and quickest way to enjoy effectual prayer. Praise expands and opens the mind upward, while its opposite, condemnation, contracts and restricts. Remember, when you talk about the law of increase, when you're talking about praising, being thankful and gratitude, remember with every law of the universe, there's a complete opposite. So this is what he's saying right here. The law has a complete opposite. Okay, praise, being thankful, having gratitude, expands and opens your mind upward. Okay, it's increasing your mind. You're going up. You're getting better. You're improving. But the complete opposite can happen too. When you go to prayer and condemnation, it contracts and restricts. It takes it away from you. So remember, all universal laws run on the same plane. Okay, there's an opposite to everything. If there's a hot, there has to be a cold. If there's a positive, well, there has to be a negative. Same way here. The whole creation responds to praise and is glad. You may have noted how a trainer, after each performance of his charges, would give them a satisfied pat or some morsel of food they especially like. That man was wise in using the law and bringing out the best work from his charges, and thereby giving the best performance. You have noticed perhaps how children will glow with gladness. I like that. I really like this right here. You have noticed perhaps how children will glow with gladness and joy when they receive condemnation and praise. Those who have trouble with their servants or helpers can learn much by using this method and will find a great difference in the quality and quantity of work produced. You have experienced at some time, I am sure, this law in your affairs. Have you ever had someone to condemn or criticize your efforts when you were trying to please? I think we all have had that happen to us, many, many times, and probably more than we would like to admit to or share. Do you not feel like folding up within yourself? Perhaps you felt like quitting the job and letting someone else worry about it. Least of all, such an experience suppressed your interest and zeal. You did not desire to do better. Listen to that. Like when someone criticizes you and condemns you, especially at work, if you're an adult, that's where you're kind of getting it the most anymore, is at work. I mean, unless your spouse does it to you, which that's a whole nother story. But, when someone criticizes you at work or condemns you at work, do you really want to do better? Do you really want to do more? Do you really want to put your best effort forth? Probably not. You probably really don't. That is how one reacts when the law is reversed. Whereas when someone praises you for your efforts, you feel like expanding and doing better, trying harder to be more perfect. When someone praises you with gratitude, thankfulness, when someone says, hey, you're doing a great job, I mean, it makes you feel good on the inside, and you actually want to do better. Your interest becomes greater because of that pleasure. And with your happiness, you bring happiness into your work and all around you. It is a well-known fact that even a plant life is responsive to praise. For I have seen flowers praised to longer life and beauty. And, this is even true. And there were massive studies on it. I used to have the book, but I don't have the book. And I'm totally going to butcher this. But it goes along with law of attraction, the power of our words. I believe it was Chinese, and he was doing studies on water, and he labeled water how the water, the cells in the water would actually change, the crystals in the water would actually change under a microscope. Like if you said bad words to it, bitter words to it, hateful words to it, it would actually change the structure of the water. Versus if you said gratitude and thankful and I love you to your water, the little water crystals under a microscope would actually change as well. So this is even true when he's saying here, this is even way back. I mean, the book was 1967, so I mean, even back then, they've had massive studies on this. It is a well-known fact that even plant life is responsive to praise, is responsive to your words. Your words have power. For I've seen flowers praised to a longer life and beauty. When we are praised or praise ourselves, there is a physical response within our bodies. Doctors tell us that the cells of our body respond to the law. They seem to know and expand in strength, in capacity, and even in intelligence. Of course, we know that it is the mind working through every cell that causes the expansion. And the more I dig deeper into, and I haven't done really videos on this, but the more you dig deeper into higher consciousness, law of attraction, manifesting, a lot of people, very higher consciousness, when we really dive into it, if you're unhealthy, start talking to your body, start talking to your cells, start going inside your imagination, picturing yourself healthy, picturing yourself healing, because your cells in your body listens to you, even you want to believe it or not. So this is what he's talking about. All thoughts act through an invisible ether. Now, ether is air. As water expands into power when it is heated and retards into a solid mass of ice when it is chilled, the law of spirit is reflected in the law of physics. Though we may not sense it or fully understand it, our thoughts are moving continually in this invisible ether, in this invisible air. And they are either increasing or diminishing in power and intelligence. Now listen to this right here. Now this is our thoughts. Now we can look at this as our thoughts. If our thoughts are positive, it's either increasing, or if it's negative, it's either diminishing in power and intelligence. When we praise the richness and opulence of God, the law of our thoughts are greatly increased into the mental atmosphere. This increase affects our being in that it reflects in everything our mind and hands may touch. If we are contracting our thoughts through fear, criticism, and complaint, we reflect that contraction and our results are delayed or frozen. There's this right here, he really kind of explains why lots of times, even like manifesting, we're talking about manifesting here, why manifesting isn't working. Okay, because why manifesting isn't working, I'll read it one more time, is this increase affects our being and that reflects everything our mind and hands may touch. So that's why it affects manifesting, because if we're looking positive, like attracts like. So positive has to, by law, it has to come back to us. But the opposite is true too. There's a negative. So if our mind focuses on the negative, by law, because with law there's no discrimination, the negative has to come back to us. So this is why he says, if we are contracting our thoughts through fear, criticism, and complaint, we reflect the contraction and our results are delayed or frozen. So our intention, what we want, is delayed. What we want is frozen. It's just halted until we get our act together. Now the purple is an example again. It has been proven that a failing business can be praised into success. Suppose lost friends have returned their affections with the law of praise was used. One man told me that while driving, he heard a clicking noise develop in the rear of his car. He talked to his machine, so he talked to his car and praised it. He gave thankfulness and gratitude to his car to get him home safely and without delay. He drove some 30 minutes and rolled into his driveway safely, so he made it home. When he tried to move the car further, he discovered a broken axle. So he basically had a broken axle on the freeway. I don't know where he was, on the road or the freeway. He drove his car with a broken axle all the way home. And he made it home, talking and praising, giving thankfulness for his car to get him home. A woman wrote to me stating that she was weary looking at an old carpet that she had that has had seen better days and had given her good service. I'll read that one more time. Let me take a drink here. I'm getting dry. A woman wrote me stating that she was weary looking at an old carpet that had seen better days and had given good service. She tried the praise method and began to speak kindly to the old rug. Within a few days, she had word that a brand new carpet was on its way from Colorado, and that same week she received 3 smaller rugs equally as new. Her husband, upon seeing the contrast with the new flooring, with a new floor covering, decided hurriedly that they must have a new suite of furniture. So all in all, the law worked. And by praising the old rug, she has a newly furnished living room. Whether the changes are in animate things or in individuals, it matters not so long as the desired results are obtained. The law works without discrimination. This is what I've been saying. The law works without discrimination. Okay, so it doesn't matter. Lots of times people get into this, well, how can this celebrity make millions of dollars, but he's not a good person? Now, how can this rich businessman make millions of dollars, but he's not a good person? Even though we don't know them, but we say he's a bad person. But the law doesn't discriminate, no matter if you're a good person or a bad person. Okay? No matter if you think positive or you think negative, it doesn't discriminate. It just gives you what your thought processes are. It just gives you what your emotional state is, what you bring an emotion to. That's what it's giving you. Okay, set aside the good and the bad. The good and the bad, remember, is on the same plane. Okay, the law doesn't discriminate. This is a hard one to kind of get over. The law doesn't discriminate. The laws of the universe don't discriminate. But better still, though praise is good for other persons and things, it is our salvation too. Praise changes our observation, our whole outlook on life. In the past, we were in the habit of seeking our weaknesses and failings as well as our shortcomings of others. But now we see differently. I love this, and this kind of brings up a unique situation too. Because when I read this before, it always popped in my mind, isn't it funny, when we go through the school system, elementary school, middle school, high school, and even college, that even our master's degree, that isn't it funny how we're trained to focus on our weaknesses? We're trained to focus on what we're not good at. Isn't it kind of weird? But when you study personal development, when you study success, when you study successful people, when you study millionaires, they say the direct opposite. They say, Chad, why are you focusing on your weaknesses? Why are you focusing on what you suck at? Okay, focus on your strengths. Focus on what you're good at. That's what you should focus on. Even years ago, I studied with, and he lived in California too, I studied with Marcus Buckingham. And Marcus Buckingham was really, really popular, even in the human resource community, as strengths. Strengths in the workplace. That basically, with all of our employees, we should find their strengths and kind of put them in positions that bring more of their strengths and not their weaknesses. I mean, isn't that weird that our society just focuses on the weaknesses, not our strengths, not to pull out our strengths and what we're good at? And that's what kind of, when I read this, that's what kind of rang so much bells in me. In the past, we were in the habit of seeking our weaknesses and failings, as well as our shortcomings of others. But now we see differently. Isn't it funny how, we're supposed to focus on our weaknesses, but then also when we look at other people, isn't it weird how besides praising them, besides pulling out the good in them and what we like about them, we always look at somebody's weaknesses also. We always look at their shortcomings. We always look at what we don't like about them rather than what we do. Isn't that kind of weird? I mean, it's weird to me, like how we look at that. That's what kind of draws out. If we're kind of internally negative, we're going to start looking at things negative. We're going to start pulling the negative out of other people instead of the positive. We look for the accomplishments, the good and the beauty that is worthy of our praise. That's what we should be doing all day long. No matter if we go to work, we're at home, no matter what we're doing, we should be looking at the accomplishments, the good and the beauty that is worthy of our praise, that it's worthy of being thankful, that it's worthy of being grateful. This in turn has a dual effect. It enriches our human self, and we are able to radiate praise, joy, courage, and happiness to all who are affected by its influence. So the more we become it, it actually becomes the law of increase. When people hang around us, when they walk away from us, they actually feel better that they hung around us or talked to us. That's pretty much what it means. It affects our inner self in such a way that our memory begins to retain all praiseworthy thoughts sent to it. This sets up a new system of thinking, and gradually the old thoughts that we're destroying become absorbed with the new ones. Thus, it becomes habitual to think praises. It becomes a habit. See, right now, if you're thinking negative, it's just a habit. You just have to break it. Now, I understand it's very hard to break habits, okay? But it's just a habit. That's all it is. You just have to become in a habit to think praises, to think gratitude, to think thankfulness. And our life takes on the likeness of all good that is worthy of praise. Praise with a heart is far more vital and effective than praise with the head or praise with the lips. Praise does not flatter nor influence God. Listen to this. Praise does not flatter or influence God as it does some humans who are turned by superficial praise and applause. Praise is not intended for God. Listen, praise is not intended for God. It is intended only for man, and it is an aid to enable him to lift himself upwards to become attuned with the law of God. It raises his state of consciousness that he may become more receptive to the good about him and lifts him above the lack of it. Praise raises man's vibration. That's what I said before. Praise, having gratitude raises your vibration, speeds up his activity, stimulates his faith, stimulates his belief, and contacts a higher realm of thought. We copy from the Israelites a practice that falls annually. Each year we have a Thanksgiving service. Now he's talking about Thanksgiving. Now I'm from the United States, so if you live in the United States, you know what Thanksgiving is. Now if you're from another country, you might not know what it is. Maybe you do, but Thanksgiving always falls, in November, kind of the last third weekend in November, something like that, on a Thursday. Usually falls on a Thursday. So he's talking about Thanksgiving. But this is a unique view he has on Thanksgiving, so really listen to this. Many think that Thanksgiving is to express our gratitude for the year in the past. So you're in that habit every time you go to Thanksgiving, and maybe sometimes you go around and you say how thankful you are, or maybe you say a prayer. But isn't it weird how we focus in the past? So this is what he's talking about. If you think for a moment, you can readily see that this is in reversal of the law of praise. So we're doing it in reverse. Such a service should not be a review. So Thanksgiving should not be in review. It should be a preview. So it should be a preview for the future. What's coming in the future? That is, a true Thanksgiving service should be an expression of our faith, expression of our belief, not in the past, but in the present and in the future to come. So a lot of us we're so in a habit to think past, but there's no power in the past. Okay, there's no power in looking behind you. Okay, you're giving away your power. All power is in the present moment, and then looking in the future. Many of us have gotten into a rut. We want our pay in advance. We offer praise after our barns are well filled. If all is going well, we are willing to pause to give thanks for our good fortune. Anyone can be grateful with a gift already in hand. If conditions are bad, listen to this. If conditions are bad, our harvest is lean, or trouble besets us, we are apt to forget to praise. Remember, like when we're going through bad times, lots of times that's the last thing we want to do is be grateful. That's the last thing we want to do to give thanks. Okay? But this is a law in reverse. What we should be doing is being grateful and giving thanks. And we storm at our failures and often blame God for his neglect. When one can sing praises in the face of adversity, the adversity will soon disappear. Listen to this. When one can sing praises, when one can sing gratitude, being grateful, being thankful in the face of adversity, the adversity will soon disappear. That is not a promise. That is law. So he's talking about laws of the universe here. The laws of the universe are exact. It's an exact science. It's a law. It has to happen. It has to come true. Learn to render praise, to be thankful for the good at hand, and you will have found the magic lamp of the Spirit. Now, as we're getting close to the end of this chapter, he's tying it back to the Aladdin, the magic lamp. You have 3 wishes. You rub the lamp and a genie pops out. He's connecting it now. And he says, when one can sing praises in the face of an adversity, the adversity will soon disappear. That is not a promise, that is law. Learn to render praise, to be thankful for good at hand, and you will have found the magic lamp of the Spirit. This attitude of mind not only brings forth our desires, but it also generates our confidence, strengthens our faith, strengthens our belief, builds up an assurance for the things to come. Thus, to be able to praise when things appear the darkest will invariably force the sunshine through. Our degree of faith, our degree of belief is the law, and God is measured before we receive, not afterwards. So it's about praising, it's about being gratitude, having gratitude, being thankful before you have what you want, before your attention, before that dream house you want, before that dream car. You're giving thankfulness before, not after you have it, but before. It is that degree of faith, it is that degree of belief that determines what we shall be capable of receiving. This is what Jesus knew when he said, "What things so ye desire when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them." I love the New Testament because the manifestation, the power of abundance is inside us, abundance is a birthright. It's all over the New Testament. This is what Jesus taught, okay? And we skip over it. We lose its meaning. Okay, the power that we really have is inside us. And Jesus even said, we can do everything he can do and even more. So I'll read it one more time. Jesus said, "What things soever we desire," whatever your attention is, whatever you desire, whatever you want, when we pray, believe that we receive them, and you shall have them. Praise is this belief in action, and that action is in the present tense. It is in the now. Samples of his work show us how he approached his problems. He's talking about Jesus in the New Testament. Samples of his work, samples of Jesus' work show us how he approached his problems. In one case, he turned to the patient and asked, "Do you believe?" And another, he questioned, "Do you perceive?" And one of his most trying tests, that of going to the tomb where his beloved friend Lazarus lay dead, we see his approach no different. He's still talking about Jesus here. He stood apart from the mourners, and his first words of prayer were, "Father, I thank thee that thou hearest me." What could one be thankful for at a time like that? Listen to what Jesus said. His best friend passed away. His best friend is dead. And yet when he comes, he separates himself from everybody crying and being sad. And then when he approaches it, he says, Thank thee, Father, for hearest me. He says, "Father, I thank thee that thou hearest me." He's giving thanks. But the master knew he was grateful for the answer to his prayer that Lazarus would be restored to life again. Directly he called out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come forth." And the book reads that Lazarus stirred in his grave and closed and returned to his body again. And we see this throughout. When you pay attention to the New Testament, you pay attention, Holliwell will bring this stuff out in other laws of the universe, is that Jesus was always giving praise. Jesus was always giving gratitude and thankfulness in whatever he was doing. He was always saying, I thank thee, Father, that thou hearest me. He was always giving praise and thankfulness. At another time, 10 lepers called to the master, asking to be healed. He's talking about Jesus here. Another time, 10 lepers called to the master, asking to be healed. And what they mean by 10 lepers, it's like a major disease. It's incurable. So there's 10 of them. He directed them to go show themselves to the priest. Later, one of the men came back and expressed his gratitude to Jesus for having been cleansed. Jesus turned to him and asked, were there not 10 cleansed? So one only came back to Jesus out of 10. And Jesus asked him, were there not 10 cleansed? But where are the 9? So one only came back to Jesus. So Jesus is saying, oh, okay, there is 10 of you. Where's the other 9? To the one who touched the law, he said, arise, go thy way. Thy faith has made me whole. Out of the 10 showed his willingness. He said 1 out of 10 showed his willingness to return with a grateful heart. He received a permanent healing. Many students fail to repeat their demonstrations because they take too much for granted and they become careless with the law. After they have enjoyed some blessing, one of the first prerequisites of the law is that we keep ever an attitude of praise and thanksgiving. Listen to this. No matter how successful we are, no matter how great our life is going, this is what he's talking about. One of the prerequisites of the law is that we keep ever an attitude of praise, an attitude of thankfulness, an attitude of gratitude and thanksgiving. If we hope to receive of God's outpouring good, we must keep ourselves receptive, and praise is one of the simplest means known to accomplish this. Be ever grateful for the very least of things, and the very most will come to you. Trying to find where I was at. Sorry about that. Well, I want to highlight this and read it again to you. Be ever grateful for the very least of things, and the very most will come to you. This is how the law works. We do it backwards. We always think, well, I'll be thankful and grateful after I get it. But that's not how it works. It's about being grateful, being thankful in the least of things. When you don't have it, when things aren't going well, and the very most will come to you. We must keep our thoughts uplifted always, and praise is the means that we will do this. If there is any ingratitude lurking in your mind and heart, begin at once to learn the Psalm of David. Praise ye the law. Praise ye the Lord. As we attune our thoughts to the law of God, that law serves us in proportion. This is the late Russell Conwell of the Philadelphia Baptist Temple must have clearly understood when he called his people to attend a special service of praise and song and prayer. Anyone in his church who wished prayers for his problems were urged to come and bring his offerings, leave his name, and state his need. One man of meager means came and asked that his daughter's name be given out. She was a patient in a mental hospital and had to be put away for this reason. The week following the praise service, he called to see his daughter in the hospital and was amazed to have her brought down to him and pronounced healed. A woman brought her jewels and placed them on the altar as her offering. She was afflicted with a physical condition and suffered painfully. She was unable to walk without the aid of her crutches. Listen to this. When leaving the church after the service, she tripped and fell on the steps. As she was lifted to her feet, she realized she had been healed. Another woman, a widow, came with her mite and asked that she might keep her home, as it was mortgaged and the payments were long past due. So basically, her house was getting ready to be repossessed because she couldn't make the payments no more. She went home, but shortly after that, it seemed that things were surely going against her. A leak broke out in the water pipe, and she was forced to call the plumber to repair it. How she was ever going to pay him, only the Lord would know. When the plumber tore up some floorboards to repair the leak, he uncovered a can of money that her husband had hidden away. And that amount was more than enough to pay for the mortgage, pay for all her past due mortgage, pay all the late payments, and pay the plumber. These happenings are all true and can be repeated by anyone who will fulfill the law as this believing minister had done. The law cannot fail us when we do not fail it. Listen, the laws of the universe cannot fail us unless we do not. The law cannot fail us when we do not fail it. Learn to turn the law of praise upon anything you are praying for, and you will see action. Learn to turn the law of praise. Learn to be grateful and thankful upon anything you're praying for, about anything you want, and you will see action. Praise is faith in action. Praise is belief in action. A faithful law, faithfully observed, will ever reward generously the observer. The law of praise, the law of gratitude, the law of being thankful will lift you from sickness to health. It will raise you from ignorance to intelligence, from poverty to influence, from weakness to strength, from fear to courage. In fact, the law of praise will promote you in all things and in all ways. Begin using the law now. Begin right now using the law of gratitude. This is what it really means. You're praising, you're gratitude, you're thankful for anything and everything. You haven't much to begin with, you say. Well, neither did Jesus when he had some 5,000 hungry souls to feed. He had only 5 loaves and a few fish. Yet he did something with them. He started action by praising the little at hand and then passed it out. You know the story. And the master said that what you did, we could do. So this is where he really says this here. We all know the story, okay? We all know the story how Jesus fed 5,000 people, but yet he only had 5 loaves of bread and about the same in fish, okay? But he praised the bread. He lifted the bread up to heavens and he had gratitude and thankfulness. So that's what he means. We know the story. You've heard it somewhere, okay? You know the story. And this is what the master said. This is what Jesus said, that what he did, we could do, okay? It said this right in the Bible, right in the New Testament. Now, some people say we can't, they think it doesn't mean what he really said. But Jesus said that. What he did, we can do. All the miracles he performed, we have the same power, and we can even do more. That's what he's saying. You have and build upon it, not with scorn and condemnation, but with praise and gratitude. You are working with a law, and the law will give the increase. Praise life that good is everywhere. Now I'll read this whole paragraph one more time, and we will wrap this up. You haven't much to begin with, you say. Like, you don't have much, okay? Or you think it doesn't work. You have nothing to praise for. You have nothing to be thankful for. This is what he means. Well, neither did Jesus when he had some 5,000 hungry souls to feed. He had only 5 loaves and a few fish. Yet, he did something about them. He started action by praising. He started action by being grateful and being thankful. And the little at hand, and then he passed it about. And he had enough to feed 5,000 people. You know the story. The master said that what he did, we could do. You have, and you build upon it. Not with scorn and condemnation, but with praise, being gratitude, being thankful, and gratitude. You are working with the law, and the law will give you increase. Praise life that good is everywhere. Be thankful that good is everywhere. Have gratitude that good is all around you. Good is everywhere. Other than that, my friends, we made it to the end of the chapter. If you love this chapter, comment below and let me know your thoughts and how it's going for you. Other than that, blessings to you, and I'll see you in chapter 7.